Welcome to MMA on the Rocks. My name is Bill Welker. You are listening to episode 250 of the podcast. Are you joining live on Facebook or YouTube? Remember, if you want to catch a show live, make sure you subscribe on YouTube. Hit the little bell notification. We'll let you know when we're going live, like right now. Every show is live. We never do the show not live. Never edited, never censored. All the dumb things we say on this show go right from our mouths to your ears. And that's the way it is. Today is Monday, August 2nd. Show's a day late this week, but, at least we didn't take 3 weeks off again. So there's that. I just got back from Miami, which is why we didn't record yesterday. It was once again on hotel Wi-Fi that wasn't holding up to the MMA on the Rock standards. By the way, those of you wondering, Jeff the Animal Wilson will be joining us. He's just running a little behind, so I decided to get the show started because usually what ends up happening is I sit here and I wait for Jeff and I start drinking, and then by the time Jeff is ready to go, I'm ready to go to bed. Or I make a fool of myself. So I'm trying to pace myself by starting the show off solo, and we'll see if it works out. I mean, Jeff doesn't drink while we do the show either, so I'm usually drinking for two. While we're waiting for Jeff, I am joined by another special guest. Those of you viewing on YouTube can see this lovely bottle of Knob Creek single barrel select that's sitting in front of me. I just opened it. I have not tried it yet. So those of you not familiar with Knob Creek, it's been a familiar bourbon on the show. I do enjoy it quite a bit. One of my favorite distilleries. Now, Knob Creek is actually made by Jim Beam. So Knob Creek is like the craft distillery, I guess you would say, the craft division of Jim Beam. They have several different ones. Cheers, Mark. And Mark, you're drinking again because now it's August. So I hope you're cracking a cold one while you're listening to the show. So Knob Creek is the craft division of Jim Beam. So obviously Jim Beam been around for hundreds of years. They know what they're doing when it comes to bourbon. But then, some people want to stay away from the big labels. Like, oh, Jim Beam, that's like, that stuff is everywhere. It's probably not as good as some other things. So, they make like a side brand, a craft brand, and they have a couple of different ones. A lot of them you would probably recognize. I'm sure you've all seen Knob Creek in the store. So single barrel, what does that necessarily mean? I'm going to nerd out on the whiskey a little bit for you guys, but while we wait for Jeff. So single barrel is exactly what it sounds like. The whiskey is aged in one single barrel, and it's usually hand selected by the master distiller. And the reason that people like single barrels is because the taste is inconsistent. That might sound weird, but think of like a Jim Beam. You crack open a bottle of Jim Beam, whether you buy it in Florida or Kentucky or New York or California or wherever you are, Japan, it's always going to taste the same. And the reason they're able to do that is because they take bourbon from multiple barrels and blend them all together so that they all have the same flavor. But when you take whiskey out of one single barrel or a single barrel bourbon, it's going to have a distinct flavor to that barrel. And usually the master distiller will hand pick a barrel for the single barrels. So depending on where you buy it, it could have a completely different flavor profile. Usually distilleries will put out single barrels a few times a year. I believe Knob Creek does it, if not quarterly, then 3 times a year. I'm not sure. You can look that up. But this is one of the more recent ones. This was barreled on February 9th, 2011. And it was selected on July 22nd, 2020. So they selected this barrel just last month, just a few weeks ago. So this was fresh on the shelf. So when I saw it, I grabbed one. I am a fan of single barrels. I like the fact that, every time you get a bottle, it's going to be something different. Depending on just the type of barrel, where it was stored on the rack, all that different stuff that plays into it. And if you are viewing this show on YouTube, you could see how dark this bourbon is. Like you can't even really see through it. And I've got a pretty bright light here. Like you can't see my eyeball through the glass. If I hold it up to my face. And this is, by the way, this is 120 proof. So this is not for the novice whiskey drinker. By the way, you'd have to put a ton of ice on it if you're not used to drinking harsher whiskeys, 100 proof and higher. And then that kind of defeats the purpose because, the higher proof has more complex flavors and it just kind of opens up differently. So if you can't handle like the really harsh stuff without putting a ton of ice on it, don't waste your time with this. Just, get a regular Knob Creek, maybe get a 9-year 100 proof, start there. You kind of have to work your way up and build your way up to being able to do these 120 proof bottles. And also to really appreciate the single barrels because, you have to kind of develop your palate with the lower stuff. So don't feel like just because I say something's good, you need to dive right into the deep end of the pool. And speaking of diving in, let's welcome all the way from New Jersey with a fresh new background, Jeff, the Animal Wilson. Jeff, I know you're excited to talk about some soccer stuff, but I got to get through this. I got to get through this whiskey before you get into any of that. But how you doing on this Monday evening, my friend?
Bill, I think I went a little too crazy today. I think the heat got to me a little bit. But I also made the mistake of not eating anything until like 4:30 today. So that was my mistake. I should have gotten some protein in me in the morning. But Bill, tell me about how I got to build up to 120 proof because that sounds like it'll put some hair on your chest, brother.
Yeah, it will. I mean, you've seen my chest, so I've had my share of 120 proof whiskey. That's for sure. No, I was just, and while you were talking just now, I was checking out the nose on this bourbon, and even though it's like really rich and really darkly colored, I'm getting like a lot of alcohol on the nose, and then like a little bit of chocolate. Oh yeah, that'll start your lawnmower. Woo. Yeah, that's got a good burn to it. I was saying, Jeff, in order to really appreciate these higher proof whiskeys, you kind of have to build your palate with, some of the lower stuff, start with the base bottles because a lot of times what'll happen is people ask me all the time, like, hey, what's a good whiskey if I want to get for a gift or something, right? That's probably the question I get asked most often. And that depends on so much. Like, is this an expert level whiskey drinker? Is this just kind of a hobbyist who likes to try different bottles? Are they a bourbon drinker? Are they a Scotch drinker? Do they like American whiskey? Do they like Irish whiskey? Do they like smoky, sweet, smooth, spicy? So many different things depend on that. And, I could tell you what a good bottle is, but, if you don't have your palate kind of developed a little bit, then you're not going to appreciate it. And I don't say that to sound like a whiskey snob or anything. That's just the fact of the matter. Like the more whiskey you drink, the more flavors you're going to pick up like as you go and as you get higher proof. But this is really nice, this Knob Creek single barrel here, Jeff, because after you get through that initial burn, and you might have seen me just put a few drops of water in this just to kind of open it up and let it breathe a little bit. But it's got like a really strong vanilla flavor that just lingers. It just kind of sits on your tongue. Like you just, bit into a vanilla plant, like a fresh vanilla plant. And there's some chocolatey stuff going on there. Not a whole lot of spice. Like sometimes with these higher proof ones, they'll have like a peppery finish. It has like a really smooth aftertaste here. What were you gonna say, Jeff?
Yeah, so I was actually gonna say that sounds really like right up my alley. But the proof would make me want to either put some water in it or put an ice cube in there. You know me, but I like my stuff on the rocks because the ice slowly dilutes it a little bit, so I like that.
Yeah, for sure. Especially you go with like one of those cubes that melt slowly, so it doesn't like wash out the flavors, because that's what will happen too. The other thing to remember, like when you're tasting whiskey, is it'll taste different like at different times of the day. Your palate's going to be really sensitive to it, and it also depends on what you've eaten. So if you ate something like really salty, that might not complement the flavors in the whiskey, and you'll taste it and like, oh, that's gross. So like sometimes people will go off of their first experience with a whiskey or with a tequila or whatever they're drinking, and they'll think like, oh yeah, I tried that, I don't like it. Well, try it again, maybe try it after you have something sweet to eat, because that will, it'll change the way your palate receives a whiskey. I don't mean to nerd out so much on the whiskey tasting, but I've been doing a lot of it since I went through that dry month in June. I just once I fell off that wagon, Jeff, I just kept rolling until I couldn't even see it in the distance anymore.
Yeah, I mean, you got to make up for lost time here.
Yeah, and
plus you made the mistake of going on vacation with your in-laws, Bill, and now you came back to go on vacation with your in-laws in the state you live in.
Yeah, it's man, I've been all over the place. I just got back like an hour or so ago, 5-hour drive back from Miami, and I'm not a fan, Jeff. Like just driving into Miami is stressful. And I grew up right outside of New York City. Like, I got my driver's like I took my road test in the Bronx. Just by example, like it to the point where like when I had to do the parallel parking, they made me park in front of a fire hydrant because there was no parking spaces. So the guy giving me my road test made me parallel park in front of a fire hydrant. A couple of other funny things happened on that, but I'm used to intense driving. But the highways outside of Miami, Jeff, they're like 8 lanes across. And then if you're following GPS, it's like you've got to get all the way across, and then you get off and exit onto another 8 lanes. You got to get all the way across to the other side. And if you don't do it, then you're going like an hour out of your way. And like people are very rude in Miami. I was kind of taken back. And that's coming from a native New Yorker, Jeff. I'm like, damn, people are fucking assholes here. What's going on? I spent majority of my life, like first 30 years of my life, in New York, New Jersey, where people are, we're known for being assholes, that part of the country. And I was taken aback by how rude people are in Miami.
Yeah, I feel like New Jersey, New York, though, it's more of, I feel like we're obsessed with work, though. So, if somebody's being rude to you, it's not that, they're not a nice person. I think it's more, time is money up here. Whereas in Miami, I feel like, I mean, you live in a beautiful city. What do you have to be mad about? I think, but I don't know. That's just
there's just so many people, and everybody's just trying to fuck each other, and they're in such a hurry to do it. that they're all like on edge, like, oh man, I gotta get laid right now. Let me cut off 19 people at once in traffic to get there.
Yeah, but I feel like if you're attractive enough, you throw a stone and it'll hit somebody who will like sleep with you. But not that I recommend, Bill. You know, we don't want anything we can't give back, so to speak.
Yeah. You don't want it. You don't want people twisting your words from the show saying like, oh, he hits women with rocks and then, and then sleeps with them.
Yeah, yeah, it's an expression, and Bill, that reminds me, I got to clear something up from last week because, Bill, I think people, you know, I mentioned driving DoorDash in between girls' soccer practices, and Bill, I think people got the impression that I was trying out for a girls' soccer team.
Yeah, or like just going to watch.
Yeah, which is not the case at all. I'm coaching soccer for the high school in the town where I work. So I teach at the middle school in this town, and the high school is like a block away. So I can just drive to the high school, meet up with the girls' team, and then hop on the bus to our games. So
Yeah,
I just wanted to clarify that. But Bill, I do enjoy being a girls' soccer coach because when we go into the weight room, I'm automatically the biggest guy in the gym.
there you go. You lift more than anybody.
Yeah, because I'm the only guy in the gym.
And you said this to me last week, and I didn't bat an eye at it because I talk to you every day, and I'm aware you're like, oh yeah, I did DoorDash, and I went to girls soccer practice, and whatever else you said. I didn't think anything of it until people started messaging me like, why is Jeff talking about girls soccer? Like, is he transitioning, or is he like a creep? And I'm like, no, he's the coach.
Yeah,
but that made him even more hilarious to me. Like, I would have been fine if we didn't correct it. My buddy Dave Shively says Blanton's on the rocks. Good luck finding Blanton's anywhere because it's allocated. That comes out of the Buffalo Trace Distillery, another one of my favorite distilleries. They make some awesome stuff, and Blanton's was one of my favorite bourbons for a long time, but I had to like psychologically separate myself from it just because it's so hard to come by, and they raised the price so much. When I first started drinking Blanton's, you could find a bottle for $50-$60. Now the going rate, even at the chain stores down here, is $109. And then good luck finding it. If it's not a place that regulates the MSRP, good luck finding it under like $200. And that goes for a lot of stuff from Buffalo Trace because it's in such high demand. It got so popular probably since they started sponsoring the Joe Rogan podcast. Now everybody who listens to Joe Rogan is like, oh, I got to drink stuff from Buffalo Trace. It's cool. And I got to do DMT and interview people with broken legs.
Oh man.
Which, by the way, I got to give a shout out to my buddy Kimura Shops is his name on Instagram. You guys have he's the one who's been doing all these things with Joe Rogan, like interviewing people that are dying and and stuff, where he photoshops Joe Rogan like next to people on their deathbed and from like famous death movie scenes and like all these graphic things, and they're hilarious. And I don't think he gets credited because I see them other places other than his account, but Kimura Shops is his name on Instagram and Twitter, and he's out of Canada, I believe. Graphic designer, photoshopper. He does some hilarious things. He takes like a lot of like classic paintings and puts like UFC fighters in them and like funny positions and stuff. He's really good.
That's funny. I gotta look this up.
Yeah, check him out. He does some really hilarious stuff. But yeah, I gotta say I'm really enjoying this Knob Creek. Because it's 120 proof, it's going right to my head, especially after this long drive. But I'll say some positive things about Miami, Jeff. It's, there are parts of it that are beautiful. We stayed at a really nice hotel. It was called the Mandarin Oriental. And by far, Jeff, the best hotel food I've ever had. And I've traveled quite a bit. I've been all over the world. I've stayed at everything from a Motel 6 like to the other end of the spectrum. I've stayed everywhere. This place had the best food I've ever had, including possibly the best chicken wings I've ever had in my life. I consider myself a bit of a chicken wing aficionado, if you will. Up until now, I would say probably the best chicken wings I've had are at a bar called Carpe Diem in Hoboken, New Jersey. I don't know what the hell they did to the wings, but they were delicious there. But at this hotel, Jeff, they were like the crispiest wings I've ever had, and then like still juicy on the inside. They were cooked perfectly. I think I had like 4 orders of wings over the weekend while I was there. So went off the rails on the diet a little bit. Obviously, a lot of alcohol, a lot of sitting by the pool, swimming with the little one and whatnot. But it was a good time overall. I'm happy to be home. This marathon of vacationing and traveling and visiting with family has come to an end. My sister-in-law and her family are on a flight back to Switzerland now. It's always great to see the niece and nephew and spend time with the family, but it's been a lot of running around for the last month, especially with all the personal things I've had going on as well. It'll be good to have a little downtime, weekend at home, catch up on the chores, everything like that. So I think that's all the loose ends pretty much, Jeff. I know you're excited about some soccer thing. So if you want.
Oh yeah, yeah. So last night I was texting you about it. The USA beat Mexico for the Gold Cup, which Bill, we haven't done that in a few years actually. So I was very excited. And
what is the Gold Cup?
Oh, so yeah, I forgot. This is an MMA podcast. The Gold Cup, we play it every 4 years, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, every 4 years.
Is that like the standard for championships in soccer?
In international soccer? Yeah, so it's the North American Championship, and every continent is its own soccer federation. So every 4 years, so usually 2 years before the next World Cup, every soccer federation on every continent has their own cup. So for the European Championship, it's just called the Euros. The South America has the America's Cup, the Copa America, and for us, we have the Gold Cup. So we had to play our way out of a group, and then we had to go through some elimination rounds. The United States beat Qatar in the semifinals because Qatar was invited, even though they're from a different federation. They're invited to play in the Gold Cup this season. So really excited, Bill. We have a pretty bitter rivalry with the Mexican soccer team. It brings out the best in our American players. So really happy that the U.S. won it this year, especially because we also beat Mexico back in June for the Nations League for North America, which is a newer competition. I don't think, to my knowledge, I'd never heard of it until this year. So I think this was the inaugural one. I don't know why they did it, 2 summers. I mean, in the same summer. I don't think it was supposed to be like that because the Gold Cup was supposed to be played last year, but COVID and everything, and quarantine and stuff. So we beat Mexico in 2 months. We took 2 cups off them, so that was really nice. And the one we won in June was with kind of our 11 starters, and then last night the United States play with some of the reserve team. All the starters, they're back in Europe playing with their respective clubs in their preseason. So it was really nice. It was nice. I think we got a good team for the future. And unfortunately, Bill, Mark Fellows is talking about USA versus Australia for Olympic bronze because, Bill, the United States women's team lost to Canada today. And the varsity coach for the girls team, so I'm the JV coach, and the varsity coach, she knows her stuff. Like, Bill, I don't want to toot her horn, but she knows people in women's soccer. She actually got an invite to try out for the national team when she was younger. So she was like right there. So she knows some of the women on the team. Like, she works out with them because she's kind of like, she has her own like fitness business where she works with pro athletes. A lot of them play for the women's team. and for the women's national team for the United States. And she was telling me today, she was like, Jeff, none of the starters played. You know, they didn't have Megan Rapinoe, who, I'll be honest with you, Bill, she kind of annoys me a little bit. And Bill, I'm gonna go off on a tangent here in a second, so I apologize. And then like Carly Lloyd didn't start, and I love Carly Lloyd. She's actually out of New Jersey. She played for Rutgers University. Fantastic player, probably one of the best midfielders in the world right now in the women's game. So yeah, like the USA, I think mentally they weren't there. You know, they were talking about redemption against Sweden. Like,
well, it sounds like they physically weren't there, some of them.
Yeah, absolutely. But Bill, I'm starting to get a little tired of Megan Rapinoe because she's the one who's advocating for women to get paid as much as men. And Bill, here's the thing. I agree with her. I think that women should get paid as much as men to play for the national team. But unpopular opinion, I don't think anybody should be getting paid to play for your national team. I think you should get $0 a year to play for your national team, because to me, Bill, I think it should be a privilege and an honor to play for your national team, because these girls, they are, and the men and the women, they all get paid to play for their clubs. So they make plenty of money. They have money through endorsements. I think it should be a privilege to represent your country. So that's why I think that the men and women should be paid equally, which is $0 a year.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's one take. I don't know. I think that would be an unpopular one. Whenever somebody says something like this to me, it obviously comes up in fighting all the time. Like, oh, this person should be making more money. I'm like, yeah, you're right. Now draw me up a plan that says where that money's going to come from. Is it going to come from you? No? All right. Well, then we're back to square one. Like, it seems like it's such an easy thing to say, like, oh, these people should make more money. Well, yes, so should police officers and teachers and firefighters, you know, and, you know, the Coast Guard, like everybody. Yeah, a lot of people have important jobs that they should be making more money. Professional athletes are not at the top of the list for me. So it's always like kind of a weird conversation whenever it comes up, like, oh, UFC fighters should be getting paid so much more because NFL players make this much money. It's like, well, maybe they make too much money. You know, like this money should be going towards like people that contribute things other than entertainment. But I never disagree. Like, yes, they should. Everybody should make more money. Sure. Just tell me where the money comes from. Like, tell me your plan. And that's where, you know, everything kind of falls short. It's like, well, the UFC has all this money. It's like, okay, do you know how they're budgeting it? Like, do you know that it's a worldwide corporation that you're comparing to like the NFL, which is, you know, only in the United States? You know, the UFC has employees and performance institutes and stuff all over the world. They have marketing teams. They have to be able to translate things into different languages. The shit costs a lot of money. But I agree. Fighters should make more money. Let's talk about some fighters then, Jeff.
Let's do it, Bill.
So UFC Vegas 33. Everybody was bitching about this card. Like, oh, this card is so bad. And it's always those ones where it's like, oh, I don't really know anybody on this one. I'm not going to watch. And then they turn out to be so good. And this was one of them. The main event was a little one-sided, but we had some awesome finishes on this card, Jeff. But let's start at the top. Almost a shutout performance from Sean Strickland. I think two judges maybe gave Uriah Hall one round. Probably the second round, if I remember correctly. But yeah, he shut Uriah Hall down. Uriah Hall seemed like he was done after the first round. Like when he was on his stool, he was looking like he didn't have an answer for Sean Strickland. And Sean did a great job of getting Uriah to fight Sean's fight. You know, he came forward like straight boxing. which his punches look strange. It's not like textbook technique that he uses. He punches like a rock'em sock'em robot, where the arms come like straight out like this. And it doesn't look right, but it works. But he was getting Uriah Hall to box back with him, and he was pressuring him, which is the way you fight Uriah Hall, because if you give him too much space, he's going to be throwing those leg attacks and spinning kicks and stuff. And, Uriah Hall kind of fell into Sean's style of fight and was just straight boxing him, which was weird because he landed that one calf kick like early in the fight where he knocked Sean like off his legs almost. He was looking like a baby horse being born. And then he didn't throw any kicks until like the 5th round. He was just boxing him. And, that was his downfall. Look, I don't know if he had an injury or something that he couldn't throw kicks, or if something was wrong. It looked like he had a broken orbital at the end of this fight. It was a bad night for Uriah Hall, but give me your thoughts on this main event, Jeff.
Yeah, Bill. So first off, the card as a whole was pretty solid. I was pleasantly surprised. But dude, Uriah Hall got shut down, man. And at the end of that first round, while he was on his stool, he had that 1,000-yard stare. Like, what am I gonna do to this man?
Mm-hmm.
And he just got shut out from there. Agree with you 100%, Mark. Strickland's cardio, man, it never failed him. It looked like he could have gone 2 or 3 more rounds after that final bell, man. Whereas Uriah Hall kind of looked relieved that it was over. And Bill, I think Sean Strickland broke him after that 2nd round. I know some of the judges gave that one to Uriah Hall, but at the start of the 3rd round, it was just a totally different fight, man. Like I think Hall relied too much on his own power to kind of get him out of trouble a little bit. And credit to Uriah Hall, because Bill, in that 5th round, he started throwing like he was looking to end that fight. But it was just too little too late, man. Day late and a dollar short, as they say. But yeah, dude, absolutely entertaining fight. And Bill, I think Sean Strickland probably surprised a lot of people, myself included. I thought Uriah Hall, he's been on a streak lately. I thought he would, be able to kind of land that sniper shot that he's talking about. But like you said, man, Strickland did such a good job of making Uriah Hall uncomfortable and making Uriah Hall fight Strickland's fight.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. That was the story of the fight for Sean Strickland. He kept the fight in a phone booth, so to speak. He kept pressuring Uriah Hall. He stayed in his face. And, it happens sometimes. It's like a weird phenomenon because, I spar guys at the gym sometimes who are really good boxers. And I'll say to myself, like, all right, I need to, use my teeps and use my leg kicks and use my clinch. And then, halfway through the round, I'm fucking boxing this guy, getting tagged up. And I'm like, wait a second, this is not what I was supposed to do. So it's like, some people are just good at like drawing you in, they keep doing the same thing over and over. And there's like a psychological thing like, all right, well, you punched me twice in the face. I'm going to try and punch you twice. As opposed to like, you punched me twice, I'm going to try and kick your legs out. I'm going to try and grab a hold of your neck, get a collar tie, something like that. So there's something psychologically there. That's a real thing. But yeah, Sean Strickland's cardio looked phenomenal. First time in a 5-round fight. Uriah Hall has been there before. I don't know if he's gone 5 rounds because he finished Anderson Silva. But he has been in 5-round fights before, right?
Yeah, when he fought Gegard Mousasi, I remember he finished him in one fight. But I can't remember if that was a 5-rounder.
Well, the first time they fought, I know it wasn't because I was there and I was in Japan. Let's see. Yeah, he finished Anderson Silva in the 4th round. Yeah, Uriah, this was the first time he's gone 5 rounds.
Okay.
which is kind of surprising because you would think he's had more main events, but he has not. So there's that. Yeah, but impressive, man. I mean, what do you do with Sean Strickland here? Some people were suggesting a fight with Paulo Costa. I think that would be a fun one.
Yeah. I think that'd be a very big test for Paulo Costa because he's somebody who empties the tank in those first 2 rounds. That would be cool. That would be really interesting to watch.
Yeah.
All right, Bill, let's make it happen. Call Joe Silva. Let him know.
I don't think Joe Silva works for the UFC any longer.
Well, call him anyway. He's a nice guy.
I should, right? Let's just catch up. The co-main event, which was not meant to be the co-main event, wound up being probably one of the most spectacular finishes on the card. A 1 performance of the night bonus. Cheyanne Bays, knocking out Gloria to Paula 1 minute into the first round. And it started with a head kick that basically ended the fight. And then it was kind of oddly timed because DePaula was coming up from the ground and her hand was still on the ground. And then right when she took it off the ground, there was a shin across her nose. And the referee, Mark Smith, if you notice, he was doing this, like swirling his finger. He was calling for the replay judge to look at the replay and see if the kick was legal because everything happened so quickly. You know, when you're watching on TV, it looks clean right away. But I guess when you're in there, everything happens so fast. So he was kind of thinking about that kick, you know, while Cheyanne Bays was breaking Gloria to Paula's face open. So that one could have been stopped a little sooner, but there was some, there were some confusing circumstances going on there. But big bonus for Cheyanne Bays. She was, one of the bigger stories coming out of this card because in the post-fight, she was talking about how broke she is. And the weird thing that she said was she had to get a loan to buy a house. But that's what pretty much anybody does when they buy a house. It's called a mortgage.
Oh man.
So I don't know. I was a little confused by that one. Like I understand you're hard up for money, but like, you realize most people don't buy houses like cash.
Oh man.
There's a very small percentage of people who do that, but a lot of people thought they were like, oh, it's sad that she had to do this. But I thought it was great. Like she struggled so much and she was so passionate about mixed martial arts. And then she gets $50,000 in her pocket for a performance in a co-main event that, just happened to be circumstantial. Maybe things would have aligned differently if she were lower on the card. Maybe she would have warmed up differently and not landed that head kick, or, maybe she was motivated more by being the co-main event. And, with a performance like that, you can renegotiate your next contract. People were saying like, oh, she shouldn't have to struggle for money if she's in the UFC, but this was her 8th professional fight. Like, how much money do you expect her to be making at this point? It's like a weird, because again, I don't disagree with anybody who says like fighters should be paid more and nobody should have to go hungry trying to compete in this sport. Yeah, 100%. But there is also a ladder to climb. You make it to the UFC, that's one rung. Now you get a performance bonus, that's another rung. Then you use that as leverage to renegotiate your contract, and you keep climbing up. This is how you progress. I saw it as a positive thing. But give me your thoughts on this performance by Cheyanne Bays, Jeff.
Yeah, Bill, for sure. Happy that she got the bonus. But Bill, it was funny the way that you mentioned it because she was complaining about the loan, and then when you said that's what most people do, and I was like, oh yeah, like like nobody pays that off right away, So it's just kind of funny, just like looking at it from a different angle. But Bill, speaking of looking things from a different angle, man, I was a little worried about the head kick for a second. And like you said, the ref in there, he's only looking at it from one angle, which is like dead on, right? Whereas, we, the audience, have the advantage of different camera angles. So, we could probably tell right away that that it was a legal kick. But Bill, I thought the timing was great, man. Gloria de Paula, as she was getting up, Bill, and you're gonna know what I'm talking about when I say this. Um, she just got straight up right to her feet. But Bill, you and I, we were under the same black belt. That's how we met in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And our black belt, Alan Teo, one of the things that we drill before we even, start training as part of our warm-up is a certain way to stand up. And we call it a technical stand-up. I don't know if other gyms have another name for it, but basically you're going to put your one hand on the floor and the opposite leg on the floor. So you're kind of making a little bit of a tripod, because your free leg is going to come in between, you're going to basically sit out. So you're going to pull your leg out from in between your leg and your
I think
one
we
leg
just need to
that's
put
planted.
post a video of this.
Yeah, it's hard to explain. But the point is, when you get up, you're basically making a triangle with your two legs and your one hand. Your other hand is kind of blocking your face. And I guess we could post a video next time I'm in Florida, Bill. Or you can post it. You're good with that stuff. I'm just the idea guy, Bill. So, the point is, if she, the whole time I was thinking, if she had stood up that way, maybe she would have been able to like block the kick or get out of the way or something. But she just stood straight up, man. It was like when Ronda Rousey got knocked out by Holly Holm. She just stood right up, and that's what happens, man. But dude, what a great start to this fight for Cheyanne Bogdazzarian. It was only like a minute into the fight too, or a few minutes into that first round.
Exactly 1 minute, actually.
Yeah. Bill, when I finish in 1 minute, nobody's that excited about it. So
well, they're still recovering from you throwing rocks at them.
Yeah, dude, but man, great fight for Cheyanne Bogdazzarian, and hopefully she can keep it up, man. I know she wasn't very happy with how her last fight went, but great way to bounce back, man.
Yeah, for sure. And it was a quick fight, so she could have a quick turnaround. The one way that she really lucked out is that Gloria picked the hand up, because what some people will do is they'll drag the hand a little bit longer so they can't get kicked or kneed in that position. And if she had done that, it would have been an illegal strike. She would, probably wouldn't have been able to continue. It would have been a no contest. And then you get, not even half of the money that she made. So it's a positive thing. Hopefully she'll be able to put some of it towards that mortgage on the new house in Vegas. Jared Gooden getting his first win in the UFC, and he moved up the main card as well, because of these other fights that were canceled that were meant to be on this card. Another first round knockout. This one was 1 minute 8 seconds. He knocks out Niklas Stolze. This was, man, he just wound up and stepped into this one. And what was interesting about it, Jeff, is it wasn't a straight right. He had his elbow up high when he threw the punch, and he was leaning into it. So it was like kind of the setup for an overhand, but his fist was below his elbow. So his elbow was kind of pushing the fist along into the face of his opponent. It was an odd setup to throw the right hand, and he was also like stepping into it. So there was just so much momentum behind it. It was just such a powerful punch. That's like some scary power. And he's got a lot of great momentum coming out of this fight now after coming off of 2 losses. So give me your thoughts on the performance of Jared Gooden here.
Yeah, man, really impressed, because excuse me, it looked like Stolze was just kind of getting his timing in here. He wasn't looking bad. And then Jared Gooden, man, that power just did not fail him that time. Really impressed, man. A good win for Jared Gooden. I keep almost saying Jared Gordon, but yeah, dude, impressed. Because it looked to me like Stolze was off to a better start here, but good finish for Jared Gooden.
Mm-hmm. For sure. Another guy making his UFC debut impressively was Melcik Bogdazzarian. This guy, man, his kicks are something else. I mean, he's obviously got a kickboxing background. I believe they said he is Romanian. I'm not sure on that, but man, this guy's got fast hands. He's got fast kicks and powerful. So this was another head kick knockout against Colin Anglin. And it was when they were trading strikes, you could just tell that Bogdazzarian was hitting so much harder. And his strikes were just so ferocious. It'll be interesting to see, his takedown defense is not there. He's only got he's only got 7 MMA fights at 29 years old. In his first MMA fight, he was submitted. But other than that, all knockouts. He's only been to decision one time, and that was on Dana White's Contender Series. Against a really tough fighter, Dennis Bazooka, who fights out of Ray Longo's gym, I believe. So it'll be interesting because if a guy's head kicking people like this, like people aren't going to want to fight him. You're going to run into the problem that you run into with like a Khamzat Chimaev, where like the higher ranked guys aren't going to want to risk their ranking, and the lower guys are trying to work their way up. They don't want to get in there with a guy that's kicking people's heads off. So it'll be interesting to see especially because his grappling needs to improve. But obviously the striking is elite. So it'll be interesting to see him, move up. But give me your thoughts, Jeff.
Yeah, Bill, I was really impressed, man. This dude is scary. Like you said, he was throwing heat every single, like from the bell, he was throwing heat. And this dude, Bogdazzarian, like you said, man, you could tell that everything was coming in with a lot of power, and everything was precise too, man. He was digging at Anglin's body with those first couple of kicks, and then that head kick, it kind of like wrapped around Anglin's head and kind of got the foot hit the back of the head, and the shin went to the chin there. So really, really scary, man. This guy's powerful, dude.
Mm-hmm.
But Bill, my question is if he's lacking in in the grappling department, how is he going to fare with some of these higher ranked guys who are pretty solid grapplers in the featherweight division here? How is he going to fare with the Max Holloways and the Brian Ortegas who can take him to the ground?
Is he a featherweight?
The fight was at featherweight, so I just assumed.
I'm not on SureDog. They have him listed as a lightweight, but I do remember this fight being featherweight as well. But yeah, I mean, either way, you had some grapplers in both of those divisions. A crazy fight of the night for me, Jason Witt and Bryan Barberena. This fight was just wild, man. I had it scored a draw because Jason Witt controlled the first 2 rounds, I think, pretty handily, but he almost got knocked out like 6 times in that 3rd round. Like at one point he was starched, like out on his feet, and somehow like didn't fall over. And I think Bryan Barberena like held him up with more punches. So I gave Barberena a 10-8 in that 3rd round, in the first 2 going to Jason Witt, which would make it a draw. But I'm not mad at Jason Witt getting this decision, but man, Barberena is a fucking animal. Give me your thoughts, Jeff.
Yeah, man, this fight definitely deserved fight of the night. I had originally another fight of the night picked until Witt versus Barberena. But dude, Barberena coming back in that last round there, just kind of out of nowhere, man, with the power and swinging heavy. And I felt like there were a few times where he kind of took a breather just because he was tired, which you can't blame him for. But it felt like if he had a little bit more urgency, he could have won that third round. At least that's what I felt like. Bill, I agree with you. I felt like the draw was deserved, but I also felt like Jason Witt dominated the first 2 rounds, very slightly. So actually, let me not say dominated. Let's say that to me, he won the first 2 rounds.
Yeah.
Because Bryan Barberena, man, he was swinging for the fences in that last round.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it almost worked. I think it did work at one point. I think he actually knocked him out and then woke him up with more punches. Is what happened there, but that was a wild fight. Danny Chavez and Kai Kamaka did go to a draw, but that was due to point deduction. There were several fouls against Chavez in this fight. Kai Kamaka should have won this fight, but unfortunately couldn't keep his fingers out of the eyes and his feet out of the crotch. So that went the way it went. I got nothing else on that one. Do you?
Yeah, the ref warned him, and he didn't keep track of his punches. But Bill, let me direct you to my original pick for fight of the night. Go back and watch this one. To anybody who didn't, if you missed the prelims, go back and watch this one. This was actually the fight that I started the card with because I missed the first two. Jin You Fry versus Ashley Yoder. Bill, this fight was nuts, dude. The first round, it looked like Ashley Yoder had her moments, right? But then Jin You Fry able to turn it up in the second and third rounds and just pieced up Ashley Yoder, man. But Yoder was never out of it by any means. Fry got the unanimous decision. It was 30-27, but it felt like Yoder was never out of it. So really, really good fight. Very back and forth. If Witt versus Barberena didn't win fight of the night, this would have been fight of the night for me.
Yeah, it was a good fight. And like you said, Yoder was never out of it. I saw a lot of people trashing Ashley Yoder after this fight, like, oh, what is she doing in the UFC and this and that. Listen, her technique's not all there. The way she throws her strikes, it's just not developed. I'll leave it at that. But she's tough enough to be in the UFC. I mean, there's no question. Like you said, she was never out of that fight. She took some big shots. She gave some big shots back because there were some flurries where it looked like Jin You Fry was going to put her away, and then all of a sudden she's eating some big shots back. So the level of toughness is there. The technique and stuff that could be worked on, but you can't really teach the toughness. You can you teach her how to throw better punches and how to have better head movement and all of that, but you can't teach her how to be a fighter. That's just something that just comes naturally for the most part. Zaruk Adashev, unanimous decision over Ryan Benoit. And then local guy Philip Rowe getting the TKO over Orion Kosuke, who was previously undefeated. So shout out to Phil Rowe, who trains right here in Orlando, Florida. But yeah, awesome card overall. I guess we need to address Nico Montano.
Who is that, Bill? Who are you talking about?
The former flyweight champion, the first flyweight champion of the UFC. Yeah, man. I mean, she just I don't know what the answer is because she hasn't had great luck in the UFC. She's probably not made a ton of money, but she needs like a nutritionist or something because she was saying that she was trying to manage her macros and like the weight wasn't coming off like it had previously. This is a tough one because she was having trouble making 125, so she moves up a weight class. And then basically weighs in at the weight for the weight class above that. Like 7 pounds. That's a huge miss. It was supposed to be 135. She weighed in at what, 143?
Yeah.
So Mark says, thanks for addressing the elephant in the room. Oh, man. That's the name of the episode. The elephant in the room. Yeah.
That's sorry. It's just so funny.
It's just bad. I mean, it's just really bad. I mean, if you miss weight and move up a weight class and then miss weight in that weight class, like there's something really wrong there. It's like you're not quite getting it, you know? And I think she just needs to go somewhere else for a little while. I mean, obviously she's skilled, but she's got to figure out the nutrition thing. Like she probably needs somebody to help her out with it. So, you know, hopefully she's able to link up with a coach or a nutritionist or like some kind of spiritual guru. That guy that was ripping off Diego Sanchez is available, I think. He's
Bill,
pretty lean.
I think things would go better for her if she worked with that guy.
What was that guy's name?
I don't know. It was probably like Rainbow or Blue Sky, something
Figment. Let's call him Figment. All right, yeah, so that was UFC. Awesome card. I did catch some of Bellator. I really wanted to see this AJ Mckee Patricky Pitbull fight. I was really excited about that one. However, I didn't even know how to watch Bellator, Jeff. And you were texting me like, I don't have DAZN, which I don't think they've been on for some time. So Bellator is with Showtime now. I don't have Showtime, but the hotel I was staying at did. So if I were not at this hotel, I would not have seen this fight live. But I was at the hotel. They had Showtime. So I saw it, and it was awesome. And there were some really good fights on this card, like one of Khabib's 45 cousins by the name of Usman Nurmagomedov. Like, could you have a more fighter name than Usman Nurmagomedov? Like, you got Khabib's last name and you got Kamaru Usman. He knocked a guy out with a knee to the body. It was pretty brutal.
Nice.
What else happened on here? Nothing else that exciting. But the main event, AJ Mckee, who is now 18-0, takes the title from Patricky Pitbull and won this tournament that they were doing that I didn't even know it was a tournament until I was watching the fight. And they're like, oh, he won the tournament.
But wait. So Patricky Pitbull, was he the champion at this junction?
Yeah, so he was the champion, but they put him in the tournament anyway.
Okay.
And they put him on the opposite side as AJ Mckee because they were hoping that they would, work their way up to the finals. So he's in a tournament for his own belt, but also for $1 million. So they basically kind of took like the PFL's model, but they don't strip the champion. So every fight in the tournament is a title defense for Pitbull, I guess. I don't know if the title was on the line because again, I didn't know this was a tournament. But AJ Mckee won $1 million. And, I've been high on this guy for a long time. He's got phenomenal skills, and he looked a lot bigger than Pitbull in there. This was a changing of the guard in Bellator because Pitbull has been like their guy.
Yeah.
Forever. He's been like their flagship. He's on all their marketing. He's ride or die with Bellator. He's been their champion forever. He's lost the belt a few times, but he's had some epic fights. And here comes this young stud. Basically knocked him out. But then when he didn't go down, he grabbed a standing guillotine until Pitbull's arms went limp. And I don't think he was totally out. And the referee, who's only listed here as Mike, I believe it was Mike Beltran, stopped the fight. And then Pitbull was like, what are you doing? But I didn't have a problem with this fight being stopped. Like, he got knocked out and then his arms went limp in the standing guillotine. Like, it was over and done with. And this was 1 minute 57 seconds, round number 1. Fantastic performance by AJ Mckee. And then he goes and he says, I'm going to take this $1 million and I would bet it on myself against any featherweight in the world. UFC 1, Bellator, my next fight, I'll bet $1 million on myself. So he's got a lot of confidence, man. He's good everywhere. Slick submissions. He's an explosive striker, explosive southpaw. He's the total package. I would love to see how he would fare in the UFC. There would be some really fun fights, like AJ Mckee versus Max Holloway. That would be fucking amazing. But yeah, any thoughts on Bellator, Jeff? I know you didn't catch it.
Yeah, Bill, I couldn't find it anywhere, and I don't have the zone to watch it on. I'm actually trying to look for it now because, Bill, we've been I think we're fans of AJ Mckee here on the show, and we've talked about him before.
For sure.
And just what a prospect he is. So I'm trying to actually look for it on here so I can watch it after the show. But Bill, it sounds like a great fight, man. Patricky Pitbull, really tough dude. He's been at the top of the food chain for Bellator for a long time, and it's been with good reason.
Mm-hmm.
I remember his fight. I believe he fought Benson Henderson. And if he didn't fight Bendo, it might have been Eddie Alvarez, but somebody who's been in the UFC.
Yeah.
And Pitbull's been in some wars, man.
Michael Chandler, he knocked out Michael Chandler, I believe.
Yeah. So he's the top of the food chain there, man. So huge feather in AJ Mckee's cap. And Bill, I can't find this fight anywhere, man.
It's somewhere. It's the internet. Somebody send Jeff a link at @animal_Wilson on Twitter. Send him a link to this Bellator fight.
Yes, please.
All right. So we're over an hour, but I want to get into this card for next week, which I've already given my stance on this main event and the interim title thing. Like, I don't have a problem with this. Like, they wanted to give Derek Lewis a title shot in his hometown, which is Houston, which is where this fight's going to take place next week, in front of a crowd. You can't tell me that Derek Lewis is not deserving of that. But a lot of people saw this as an insult to the champ, Francis Ngannou. I'm just not in agreement with that. I don't see how it affects him. If anything, this is a better case scenario, because if Derek Lewis goes out and wins in devastating fashion, they put a belt around his waist. Now it's interim champion against reigning champion. That pay-per-view is going to sell way better than if you just tried to book a rematch of a fight that went down as probably the worst heavyweight fight in history. With the two of them circling each other like old-timey boxers, and just, raising their fists at each other. I don't see how this interim belt hurts anybody or how it's an insult to Francis. They wanted to give Derek Lewis an opportunity to fight for the title in his hometown. Francis wasn't going to be ready until September. Like, once you have a venue booked, you can't be like, oh, sorry, Toyota Center, can we have this venue like next 2 months from now instead? Like, that's not how things work. You have to book these things like months, if not a year in advance. The UFC knows where their next like 15 events are going to be. So I don't have a problem with this. And I think it's a fun fight. Derek Lewis and Cyril Gane. Cyril Gane is still really young in his MMA career, only 9-0, but what else are you going to do with the guy? Like, he's beaten two guys in the top 10 now, I believe. So you got to move him up the ladder. He's well-rounded. He's got the kickboxing background. He's got submissions that he can pull out of nowhere. And Derek Lewis is Derek Lewis. Like, who doesn't want to see him fight? So this is going to be a fun one. UFC 265. Give me your thoughts, Jeff.
Bill, this whole card looks awesome, dude. I love that the UFC is doing this. I love the interim title picture, because if Derek Lewis wins, you can't use that first fight to market Lewis versus Ngannou too.
Mm-hmm.
You just can't. Like you said, the fight was terrible, and throw in interim title belt in there. Now you got some selling points.
Mm-hmm.
The marketing, the editing team can put together Lewis winning the belt, Ngannou winning the belt. That's awesome. That's going to make a lot of money for a lot of people.
And you have all the fans rallying behind Ngannou, like, no, he's a real champion. They shouldn't have done this interim title.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So yeah, I think it's a great idea. And if Derek Lewis doesn't win, because Cyril Gahn, like you said, a very game fighter. You have two guys from the same country. We've never had uh, two French fighters fighting for for the heavyweight belt against each other. So I think that'll be really interesting.
Yeah.
If
You've
you
hardly
can,
ever had two French people fighting for anything.
yeah, exactly. It's usually a lot of white flags and cross ants everywhere. but but
How do
Bill,
you think the two of us would do in a tag team match against Cyril Gahn and Francis Ngannou?
I don't think it goes well for them, dude.
That's it. I'm declaring us the interim heavyweight champions. See how pissed off everybody's gonna get about this.
Oh man, dude!
I think I can. I'd have to do quite a bit of bulking up, but I think I could make 265, Jeff.
Yeah, I'd have to cut down to 265. But Bill, I'm working on that now. So by like January, I'll be ready to take on Francis Ngannou.
Let's do
it. Yeah, Bill, I'm doing an Imanari roll. I'm going for his legs. That's my game plan.
Sounds solid. And you're announcing it 6 months in advance, so he'll never see
time to get ready. But anyway, Bill, yeah, I think you can't go wrong with this. And plus, now you have a whole country tuning in for this fight, because if the fight's not in France, people from France, hey, you got two French fighters fighting each other, you're opening up a whole new market, man. So I think I don't see how this can go wrong, like no matter what happens.
Yeah, I think it's great. Any way you do it. And even if Ngannou is insulted, that only benefits him even more, because then it gets all his fans rallying behind him. People are still going to watch this because it's Derek Lewis. Like, everybody's going to want to watch Derek Lewis. And this is a great card, too, by the way, Jeff. Yep. Co-main event, Jose Aldo against Pedro Munoz. That's a fantastic fight. Aldo has had this revival in his career where he's looked fantastic. So that's a really fun one. I'm going to throw a bunch at you, Jeff. Michael Chiesa, Vicente Luque. This is a potential, number one contender creating fight. That one's going to be really great because Luque is like the friggin' Terminator. Yeah. Chiesa is super crafty. His striking has gotten a lot better. His wrestling is so good. Is he going to be able to hold Luque down? I don't know. We got to tune in to find out. Tisha Torres and Angela Hill. That's a fucking dogfight if you've ever heard of one. Angela Hill has had a lot of rest because usually she fights like every 30 weeks. And I think she hasn't fought in like 4 or 5. So that'll be good. Casey Kenny, which I believe his last fight was against Dominic Cruz. He's going to try and bounce back, but he's getting in there against Song Yadong. That's a fun fight. And here's all those amazing fights, right, Jeff? Here's my sleeper pick. Rafael Fiziev against Bobby Green. That is going to be fantastic. Yeah. Rafael Fiziev is like out of a video game, and Bobby Green is another guy whose career has kind of been rejuvenated lately, changed camps. He's looked phenomenal in his past few fights, and he's just a gamer, man. A lot of experience, but Fiziev is just fun to watch. I would not miss that one. You want to interject anything here before I keep going, Jeff?
No, you're doing fine, man. Like, all these fights look awesome, dude. This card, top to bottom, even the prelims are looking fantastic, man. But go ahead, Bill. Keep reading off the fights, man.
Yeah, we got Ed Herman and Alonzo Menafield. That's a fun fight. The old guard against the new guard. Menafield is a guy. If you can survive the first round, you're going to be in pretty good shape. And Ed Herman's a pretty durable guy, but he's up there in years as well. So we'll see how that one goes. Karolina Kovalekovich, I think first time for her, not on a main card. So she's fallen down the ladder. Tough test though against Jessica Penne. So that's a really fun one. Manel Cape and Ode Osborne, two guys who came in with a lot of momentum and then kind of lost steam. So they're going to be fighting their way to see who, this might be a loser leaves town kind of fight. You got Miles Johns, who's really exciting. He came off the Contender Series. He's fighting Anderson Dos Santos. That's going to be a fun one. And then some lesser known fighters at the very bottom of the card, but some good looking records here. So this is a really exciting card, Jeff. I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to being home for a card. I've been watching all of these fights in hotels and like on the road and while dealing with a bunch of stuff. So it's going to be nice to be home to watch the fights. So and get back to some sort of routine here, but give me your thoughts on UFC 265.
Yeah, Bill, top to bottom, this card looks awesome. And Bill, so I'm actually looking. I'm on the Wikipedia, and they have a poster on here. But wasn't Nunez versus Pena supposed to be on this card as well?
Yes, but that was pushed back because Amanda Nunez and her wife tested positive for COVID.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, hopefully everybody's okay in the Nunez household. But Bill, top to bottom, this card looks awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Aldo versus Pedro Munoz looks fantastic. Bill, for me, I think my sleeper fight pick is going to be Ed Herman versus Alonzo Menafield. I think that fight is going to be fireworks. And as for Karolina Kovalekovich, I hope she's okay, man. I know she's been having some hard time with her mental health. She's racked up a few losses, but I think Jessica Penne will be a good test for her. I think if she can bounce back with a win over Jessica Penne, I think she'll be back in good spirits. But dude, this whole card looks awesome. I can't wait.
Just because you brought it up, I had to pull up Karolina's record. So she's lost 4 in a row. She lost 6 of her last 8. So yeah, it's not looking good. But if you look at the people she's fought, Xiaonan Yan, Alexa Grasso, Michelle Watterson, Jessica Andrade, and then then she won 2, and then it was Claudia Gadelha, Joanna Jędrzejczyk. She was never really the same after that Joanna Jędrzejczyk fight.
Yeah, Jędrzejczyk, she does a number on anybody she fights. I remember her blooding up Jessica Penne in their fight.
Yeah.
But yeah, Bill, I think the Penne fight is gonna be, if she can kind of get back on track here, I think she can get back to a good spot. But Bill, do you think that it's do or die for Kovalekovich here?
Yeah, I'd say 5 in a row is probably more than anybody's career can withstand. I've always rooted for her because she just seems like such a sweet person, like very innocent, but she's very skilled. Like her striking is very technically sound. She's got good takedown defense. But yeah, Jessica Penne is one tough woman as well. She's been around a while. I think that'll be a fun fight. I think that's a great sleeper pick. I went for the fireworks. So I hope we're going to see some more highlights from Fiziev. If you guys don't remember Rafael Fiziev, he's the one who he dodged that kick and basically bent his back in half like an action figure. Just wild stuff that you would see in like video games. But yeah, man. So hopefully we'll get back to doing the show on Sundays again next week, and we'll figure out, some time that works. But if not, we'll do it when we can. I mean, it's still costing you guys nothing. So what are you complaining about? I'm going to pour myself, I think, another little sifter of this Knob Creek single barrel that I've been thoroughly enjoying. It's actually, I feel like it's gotten sweeter. There's a thing called the neck pour, Jeff, that's like probably an urban legend in the whiskey world, but they say like never trust the whiskey that you pour out of the neck because you don't get the true flavor. You got to wait until you're down into the bottle a little bit. And then, there's something that happens like after the oxygen gets to it and you start getting through the bottle. Like sometimes the flavor profile will completely change when you're halfway through the bottle. Sometimes it'll make it better. Sometimes like, oh man, I really liked this last time and now it's different. And that's also the risk you take with the single barrels too, because no two barrels are the same. So since they're not blending a whole bunch of barrels together, whatever comes out of this one barrel is just, that's how it's going to taste. And you could get another bottle of this, down the line, and it'll taste completely different. Some people like that about it, because it's like opening up a new present every time. Some people like consistency. Some people like, to taste the same thing every time they pour a bottle. So it's all personal preference. We don't judge anybody for what they like here on the show, Jeff. Drink whatever you like, the way you like to drink it. We always say, even if you like to drink it anally, it's your choice.
Yeah, that's
gets in the bloodstream quicker.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if the taste buds would appreciate it, but do what you got to do. On that note, if you want some MMA on the Rocks merchandise,
great, smooth, Bill.
You like drinking whiskey through your anus? Buy a t-shirt or a hoodie or a tank top from our friends at Team Reaper. The website is reaper1.co. Information is right below me if you are watching on Facebook or YouTube. You can use the promo code MMARocks10 to save yourself 10%. That's anything on the whole website, so you don't have to buy our merchandise. Of course, we do appreciate it, but you can find some other cool stuff on there. Gear bags, jiu-jitsu gis, rash guards. They have a rash guard of the month club. The rash guard designs are really cool. I need to start I have a bunch of the rash guards. I need to start posting them more on social media. I'm sorry, guys. I'm really bad at social media. Like, I know I need to be posting more, but I need to hire somebody to do it for me, I think. So if anybody wants to do it like for free, or for like whiskey advice, or for like I'll send you a t-shirt. Let me know. Yeah, so that's that. Buy some merchandise if you want, if you find yourself over the top or under the influence or both at all times. Then there's that. Buy some Knob Creek bourbon. They're not a sponsor of the show, but I like it. So it's good stuff. Again, made by Jim Beam. Little known fact. Were you on when I said that, Jeff, that Knob Creek is a craft distillery owned by Jim Beam?
No, I actually did not know that.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Little whiskey factoids you get on here, along with some misguided MMA analysis or whatever you call what we do here. Yeah, I guess that's it. If you guys want to get a hold of Jeff, it's at animal_Wilson, Twitter and Instagram. You guys know how to get a hold of me. I'm not great at posting on social media, but I try to respond to everybody at MMA on the Rocks, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all that stuff, other places. I don't know, MySpace. I think I'm on there too. And that's it. That's all we got. So until next time, cheers, everybody. Goodbye.